Welcome to the Age of Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Today is October 30th. It's 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for listening if you're listening to the podcast or to us on the YouTube channel UCY.TV. Today is Call-In Friday, and I have a few things to talk about before I give you the phone number. First off, I think, in reflection on my radio show, I want to thank Jules and the community that's following this radio station, because I really think that what's happening on this station in particular, and I listen to a bunch of alternative radio stations, this is the one station where you can get many, many, many different kinds of points of view. A lot of stations kind of keep to the same type of people, and I personally appreciate the fact that this radio station gives voice to many different venues. And I've kind of noticed, I think I'm the flaming liberal on the radio station. So I wear that proudly, no problem. I do speak up for the rights of human rights. And I guess I am what you call a socialist. I do believe that we need to take care of the very poor. I think it's completely inhumane to have people living on the streets. I live in Eugene, Oregon, and the number of homeless people for this little town is astounding. And, I do give money to the homeless people, tell me I'm wasting my money. My little sister died of alcoholism at 50 years old. I know for a fact that she would take her friends' kids and go stand out on a corner and pretend that she was homeless while she was living on welfare, using the system as much as she possibly could. She had a wretched life. That's what happens. And I don't begrudge the wretched. That is my point of view. And, we live in a country that aspires to be, quote, Christian. And from my point of view, my attitude is more Christian than the people that say, just fuck them, who cares, let them die in the street. I have a huge problem with the inhumanity that is going on, which is why my bumper show says love is greater than fear. We do not talk about love enough in our culture. And because we don't talk about love, we go to war quite quickly. We are about to march our kids right off to Afghanistan. And I was thinking about that really seriously hard when I was doing research for today's show, because it's Call-In Friday. We have, we're a small station. We're gathering up steam. Within a few years, we'll have millions of listeners, but we're gathering steam. We're a brand new radio station. So I was thinking about the hubris of me to we're having call-in radio with maybe few hundred listeners around the world. So I I still think that's a great idea. I do want to give voice to our listeners because people have great ideas. Like Road Dog will be on in the next, actually, he's going to be coming on the 7th of November again. Ty Bradford, he is the gentleman studying up in Montana, I think it is, that I heard on this radio station, has great ideas, understands about food and health and healing, and people like that need a voice, and we need people to call in and share their ideas, which is why I thought it would be a great idea to have call-in radio. The format of my show is in an effort, true liberal style that I am, to be kind of inclusive of everything. Like, I want to talk about the social engineering, which brings me back to where I am today, about the social engineering of the war idea. But on Mondays, we read the nuclear alerts. I thought when I first did it that I'd have enough time to do nuclear alerts and then talk about the news and the other news. And because if you read the nuclear alerts and you see what we're not talking about, and then you watch the news, it's pretty obvious it's intentional. This is not an accident, folks. And Wednesdays we do interviews, and on Fridays we have call-in radio. So I was thinking about how we are about to send a bunch of kids off to war again to kill people that we don't even know, that have no idea why they're getting. I mean, they're just as much victims of ExxonMobil as we are, folks. There's no reason for us to send our kids over there to kill them. They're not coming here to kill us. The people that are doing that are in our own deep government. What we need to do is push to stop the military in our country. It is, I'm not saying we don't need self-protection, but we don't need secret government. We don't need a budget offline that no one even sees nowhere. That's what we've got right now. And that's what causes the dangers around the world. That's what's causing it. And it's also part of the nuclear process because they want that uranium processed. They want it going. They want people to... they want people to get sick with cancer. Hey, cancer's a big money maker. I mean, why do you think they're raiding organic farms? Because they don't want people to be healthy. Like, really? We're their useless feeders, and we have brains. We think we're free, so we need to give them all our money. That's their thinking. So, I think it's very important for us to speak out right now. I don't believe, in my heart, I think it is, we need to end it. Like, we need to stop with the insidiousness of it. You know what made news this week? This was very interesting, was the EU basically is going to give cover to Edward Snowden. And I personally think that Edward Snowden is a hero. This argument that he should have gone to his higher-ups, really? Look at the people who have gone to their higher-ups. Have they stopped it? Have we had Senate hearings stopping this shit to the ground when it happened? No. You know what we had 2 weeks before Edward Snowden's disclosure? Was Clapper lying directly to my own senator's face, Ron Wyden, under oath, on camera, and Ron Wyden knew he was going to lie to him. And my own senator sat there and pretended like this man's bullshit answer was a real answer. My own senator, who is an esteemed senator, in fact, he's one of the reasons that my other senator, Jeff Merkley, could not get his bill that he prepared to modify the Price-Anderson Act. That was one of the first things Jeff Merkley did, to his credit. And I believe he still has the legislation ready to go when they feel like it might even be able to get to the floor of the Senate. For those of you that don't know what the Price-Anderson Act is, look it up. It is one scary piece of legislation. Rubber stamped, I think, since 1957 or 59. It's just hideous. It is the reason that St. Louis can happen with impunity. Why all of our elected officials, to date, up till this second, have been denying the catastrophe that lies in wait in St. Louis. Merry Christmas, St. Louis. They are expecting that fire to go off on the radiological fire around Christmas time. That is the gift they're going to give. This is going to be the gift that keeps on giving, folks, because once that radiation catches fire, we're fucked. Super fucked. Just like Fukushima. They don't even know how to stop Fukushima. That's what they don't tell you. They don't know how to stop it. And they're not willing to like dump all their fucking war machines on top of it. Like I was thinking about this, all this metal that we have, why can't we just pour all like the tanks and all the useless cars, all the trash that we have, just pour it on top of that? I don't know what it would do, but for fuck's sake, it can't be worse than what we already have. It's super bad. Anyways, I actually really, can you tell, I think that this is super important that we not just go along with the program and say, oh yeah, let's send our kids to war, America. Let's send them back to Afghanistan because those scary people might come here. And people who don't have jack shit are going to come here. Who is going to come here? People that are well connected with money. They're not sending poor people over here, folks. They're sending people over here with money. And all those people with money know people in our government. Think about it. The whole thing is about money. The nuclear cartel is about money. It's a complete outrage. And we're about to send our kids over there. Yet, we're sending our kids to kill people they don't even know. Yet, because we got to keep America safe, mind you. Keep America safe at all costs. So we're going to send drones over so our soldiers don't get killed. We're just having them drop bombs on people they can't even see. And who cares, nameless, it's just like a video game, who cares? Right? Because it's much better to have that happen than to have our soldiers go over there and be mentally scarred with these visions of bloody, gory body parts all over the fucking place. That's a much easier thing to do to our kids. And yet at the same time, we have St. Louis about to fucking blow up 1,000,000 times more than any fucking dirty bomb that could get snuck through NSA or whatever the fuck those people are. Honestly, it is 1,000,000 times worse. This thing, the catastrophe, that unspeakable catastrophe going on in St. Louis is an outrage. And yet we're talking about, business as usual. Let's send our kids over to the Middle East again to protect America. When our waters are being killed, as Jules talks about every day, our food supply is being decimated. Dame Wigginton talks about the air. We're being intentionally poisoned. And yet we're going to send our kids off to Afghanistan or back to Iraq. And the sad part is, what's really sad? The soldiers that were over there, they want to go back. They feel a sense of responsibility, and you know why? Because Americans are basically good people at the heart of it all. I really believe in our spirit. I mean, unfortunately, our younger generation has missed out on civics. George Bush took civics out of high school, so high school students these days don't get a civics education. They don't learn about the Constitution. And the Constitution they've learned about, it's very interesting. I mean, I know I've read the Federalist Papers. I don't know. In fact, I have a copy of them. They were the foundation of our society, and they really formulated the American mindset. So I see that we're 13 minutes in, and I will give you out the phone number. If anybody's so inclined, please give us a call here on the Age of Fission radio show, 718-717-8296. That number again is 718-717-8296. And I do have some things prepared because I understand we don't have a lot of people calling in. So I wanted to talk to you about, interestingly enough, again, here we are ignoring the elephant in the room, which is the nuclear catastrophe that is unfolding. And thinking about our kids going off to war. And so I went to the internet to look for stories about Fukushima, about the WIP processing plant, St. Louis, trying to find stories about how people feel about it. And I guess that's part of the electronic curtain is it's very difficult. Like we have this worldwide internet thing, but where do you go to look information up and to see how little, I don't even think people are asking the locals, how do you feel about it? I wonder how the locals in St. Louis, I mean, I saw an interview this morning with a man who was outraged, but he's been active for a long time. Now, I'll tell you this. I do know that the Joyce Meyer Ministry is right there in St. Louis. During the 90s, I was a pretty, I don't know, avid, I guess, committed, holy roller Christian, and I followed Joyce Meyer, and frankly, her information helped me. I have a problem with the ministry, however, that gets millions of dollars and the minister gets to get, plastic surgery because it makes her look better. But I actually, that whole Christian prosperity thing I have an issue with, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I want to talk about this. Her ministry is right there in St. Louis. Have I heard them come out one time? I actually think I have a responsibility to call their office and tell them about it. And I can't believe that they are not speaking out because she's a very well-known person in Look, I'm a flaming liberal in Oregon, and I know who Joyce Meyer is, Joyce Meyer Ministry out of St. Louis. So there's a lot of people who know about her, and she could be doing a lot more to protect people out there because St. Louis is going to be a horrible problem come December, January. I mean, at most it'll be January or February. They're saying worst case scenario, it'll start on fire in December. That's the worst case scenario? I think not. That's probably the best case scenario is that we know what's going to happen. There is no worst case. The worst case scenario is that pile of contamination catches on fire and blows up and the city of St. Louis is gone. That's what the worst case scenario, you dumb fucks. Like, no offense, but this is where I start cussing. Like, the incredulity of these people is just beyond comprehension. So I go to look up research, anticipating that now no one will call in on Call-In Friday, which I'm going to give you the number out again, 718-717-8296. Please call in and talk to me about whatever is on your mind. We can talk about the things I talk about or issues that you think are important, like, I don't know, whatever it is. But I went to the internet to find information, and I actually typed in just Fukushima, October 30th, 2015. 2 articles came up, and they were almost they're the same mindset. Now, this was really interesting. Fukushima, this is from Global Research, and it was written January. It says Global Research, August 6, 2015. They reprinted it, right? But it was originally printed on January 2012. Fukushima, a nuclear war without a war, the unspoken crisis of worldwide radiation. The war without a war. That's the theme of the day, I guess, huh? But check out this one. And many of you probably have read this one. This is actually a really great article. It is written by Fukushima. It came out today. Fukushima, a hushed cover-up in Counterpunch. And Counterpunch is a great online magazine, you guys, that if you really want to hear a lot of good things about the facts of the nuclear technologists and what the truth is, an alternative viewpoint than the mainstream media, Counterpunch is a good one. So anyways, October 30th, 2015 by Robert Hunziker, Hunziker. Fukushima, a hushed-up catastrophe. This is a great article. I'm going to pick through it because it's stunning the way that we are ignoring Fukushima. And people are talking about it, but really are we demanding that we get all of our military forces? Imagine the money. If we have the money inside of our military to use the money to really just figure out. Imagine if we had, like, I don't know, all these scientists, these brain scientists that understood nuclear they couldn't go to Japan now, could they? Because I think it's too contaminated. And maybe that's why they don't go there, but they have to. I can't believe they're just ignoring it. I'm going to continue. The Fukushima disaster is radiantly exposed in the Pacific Ocean. But as for people behind the disaster, it is treated like the Manhattan Project circa 1942, top secret. You bet, brother. Try to call your elected official and talk to them about Fukushima, folks. I mean, the hush tone that comes over there is outrageous. They will not talk to us about it. Okay, here we go. Hold on just 1 second. Good morning. You're on the radio with Lonnie Clark in the Age of Fission radio show. Who am I speaking with?
Hi, my name is Patrick.
Hi, Patrick.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for calling.
Thanks. I was calling. I wanted to touch upon what you were talking about with Fukushima.
Yeah.
Lake landfill.
Yeah. What part of the world where do you live?
I'm here in Washington, D.C.
Okay, great.
So, I have family actually that are out there in St. Louis, and
wow.
So I know that they are trying to legally deal with the county and the state there. Part of the problem is that they were dealing with the corporation that owned that land,
right.
And that goes back to Bill Gates.
Right.
So when Bill Gates and his company set that up, they set that up through the EPA so that it would be a landfill to distribute the legal liability. This is why the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers can't step in, which is what the county and the state are trying to do now.
Well, wait a minute. So does the EPA oversee it then? Is it the EPA's responsibility? Is that what you're saying?
To my understanding, right now the EPA is doing the oversight, and they have all of the logistics and in terms of that. But the only people that are going to actually deal with it in terms of remediation underneath the soil are the Army Corps of Engineers.
So great. Now, really,
right.
The Army Corps, we're trusting the Army Corps of Engineers to deal with this?
Right, as bad as they are after Katrina and everything, right.
Well, so and the Army Corps of Engineers knows about radioactivity?
They know how to deal with remediation in terms of cleanup sites and things of that sort. They have specialists. They actually have specialists in the area. I don't know if it's St. Louis County. I think it's one county over. But they actually have a military testing ground right there for that. It's a CBRN testing facility. There's actually 3 in the state of Missouri that I believe. And it's
a testing facility to do what?
For cleanup of chemical, biological, radioactive.
Yeah, but this is the point that they're ignoring. You can't clean up radioactivity. Like, there's no cleaning that shit up. You can't clean it up. You don't just erase it and it turns into nothing. It's not like washing your car.
No, I totally agree with you. So we're kind of fucked either way.
Yeah, super screwed, man. I mean, are your relatives thinking about leaving St. Louis?
Well, they are just becoming aware of this situation. And people in the area, though, of St. Louis County, St. Louis City directly, have known about this for decades in terms of the illegal dumping, the health issues, you name it.
But this is a really, can you imagine if that thing really catches on fire? This is not like just some other contaminant that they can just, ignore. What happens? I wonder, see, I'm not a scientist, so I come at this with a completely layman's bunch of questions, right? What happens if a big dump site like that catches on fire? In my brain, I'm thinking because it generates heat, if you heat it up and it generates more heat, it will blow up.
I mean, myself, I'm just a botanist, but, from the studies that I looked at with Fukushima, in terms of oxidation and right. So, yeah, it's pretty bad.
Do you think that it could blow up? I mean, you sound like you understand science way better than I do.
There's a similar biodegradation process in terms of when you're farming and you do composting, and that's basically what's going on at the landfill. So I guess it's been the last couple of weeks and couple of months, and they're saying that it's within 1,000 feet of the the nuclear waste.
They're saying it could catch on fire by December.
They actually have done no earth ground based penetrating radar testing. So they So right, they actually have the technology there, and they haven't done it. Both the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer, there's several branches that are there within the state and the county that can do that. The main CBRN testing facility is actually 60 miles away from Westlake. So they have the equipment right there. They can come out with trucks. They could fly
Well, who
over with
would order
helicopters.
it? Who would order that to happen?
I mean, it could be done through numerous channels. The governor himself could declare a state of emergency, and he could do it through National Guard troops. He doesn't have to go to the capstone level and talk to the president
What
and get
about
an
the
order,
senators and the
from the
Congress?
head. Yeah, it's crazy.
What
The
about like
governor.
Claire McCaskill or the Congress people out there? I mean, like those federal authorities, they have pull with the EPA, couldn't they? I mean, I am dumbfounded. Tell me that again. That there has been no testing.
There's been no testing whatsoever. There's been no satellite testing, no ground penetration testing. They're just
making guesses. In other words, they have no idea like how deep the fire. I mean, it's smoldering underneath there. Correct.
Correct.
And so if we did testing, like we did sonar testing, or what do you call that, radar testing, they could actually tell where the underground fires are underneath those little, and could they also not tell where it's all leaking and where it's all like decayed? Like it would show a lot of that. But I mean, that's a gigantic pile, correct?
Yes. I mean, from my understanding, and we have things far less down on the scale than HARP technologies, and we have various arrays already around for that. So we could do that within a day and totally map that down, whether it's a mile down, half a mile down.
Okay,
Right.
Are the activists in St. Louis actively, I mean, are there any organizations that you know or any people there that are working like to force their elected officials to get this going on like prontito, like have it done yesterday?
To my understanding, there is no specific organized group dealing with much of anything except for just residents coming to the community meetings.
And people, what is it there? Then what is this is kind of astounding because people know about it. Yeah. And these are all good church going together. They all go to church people, right? Like we're living in a pretty conservative state here, right? Like these are people who are actively engaged in their community in other ways, right? They're not like just, couch slugs. They all are pretty active people there, correct?
Yes.
I mean, a large portion of them. So what do you think is the mindset there that they're not organizing and like saying, hey, we need to be putting pressure on our leg? They're just like letting the fucking truck roll over them. Excuse my language, but I mean, what keeps people from like going to their elected officials and demanding that this has got to be tested? At least we need to know what's going on.
Yeah, from my understanding, none of the county officials wanted to come out and speak to the residents in the Westlake area who've been speaking on this, I guess, for, to my knowledge, it's not complete, but to my knowledge, I guess the last year or so, that they began requesting for officials to come out. So none of the county officials want to come out. None of the state officials want to come out because they're saying that it's a matter for the EPA to speak on. Right.
And why is the EPA speaking?
The EPA doesn't want to speak on it because they're saying that they have joint legal liability. They're saying, hey, we're in this as regulators, but there are 6 or 7, 8 other companies that are invested into this land, so we're not solely responsible. So it's becoming
is this landfill, is it part of like a waste management, or is it part of a utility board, or is it a private corporation?
I forget the name of the corporation offhand, but if you Google Bill Gates sells stock in Westlake Company, all that information will come up, and it's
Bill Gates. Did he really?
This was I don't know, sometime during the summer, and he's had stock in this company for years, and in terms of the company going back several years. So he's known this. The fire started 5 years back. Bill Gates invests in this company. he's known the fire's going on for 5 years.
Oh,
And it's only at the point where it reaches the 1,000-foot marker that we hear in the news. He knows what's coming. He dumps his stock because it's a matter of liability. Right.
Well, I'm looking at this. You know what keeps popping up on that when I typed that in was him selling Microsoft stock.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
That he sold Microsoft stock. That's the big thing that they're talking about. That's what pops up. I can't even. Oh, well, let me just put it in because you're telling me that Bill Gates, he actually knew this was coming and decided. Now, is he connected to it at all? Is it still his company?
Well, he had majority stock in the company. And so he had to notify people that were invested with him in his various corporations. So the information went public that way. Very few people locally actually knew that Bill Gates was involved. But when he did this big stock dump, I guess that was maybe around August, right? He had to publicly disclose, and
Wow.
Right. And then him being, heavily tied.
Okay, so we have the man, but what about the company, like the other companies? So there's 3 companies that, it sounds like they set it up just like they do all the utility boards. That's what makes me wonder if it's not set up as a utility board, because it's the same thing. We have we have our, up here in that's part of the issues for us closing down the Columbia generating station. So, what they've done is they've broken it up so that it's just not just one, like the same thing. The energy department says, well, we can't close it down because we have private vested interests. So they use this same thing, like it's that same role model of dispersing the liability among a bunch of corporations, and then having no response, and then none of those corporations actually have a responsibility to do the cleanup. My guess would be, if you look at their documentation on all of these corporations where the EPA says, well, they have a responsibility, none of them have just like the Price-Anderson Act. They don't have any responsibility. It's that they have a very limited responsibility. They can spend a few $1 million, and after that, it's going to be a problem of the United States government.
I agree with you 100%, and I think, from my understanding, because I'm very new to this, within the last 6 months, it seems that's how they set it up, consciously, purposely.
Well, that's exciting. How did you get engaged in this whole concept about Fukushima and what a horrible thing to have to wake up to, Fukushima and St. Louis. At least I've had a couple of years ahead of you on that one. How did you find out about Fukushima when you?
In terms of, well, I've always been interested in the environment, and my field is ethnobotany. So part of that crosses over beyond plants in terms of relationship of humans and how we interact with the environment, things of that sort. So I had lived and studied in Hawaii, lived there for several years. And the night that Fukushima actually happened, I was on the phone with my contacts in the Japanese government, checking on my friends who were all across the South Pacific. And then from what I heard, I almost went to social media and blasted. I didn't have the evidence then, but from what I heard from my sources was that within 4 hours they knew it was total meltdown.
Did they really?
The Japanese government knew within 4 hours that it was a total meltdown out of 4 out of 6. They knew that, but they couldn't say that because of what that would involve, which is the total relocation of Tokyo, possibly the whole eastern half. You're talking about mass deaths in the tens to hundreds of thousands over a period of 10, 20, 30 years.
Well, that's exactly what they're doing.
That's what this is what's going on.
I mean, that's the program they've gone with. Let's just kill our citizens. They're moving people back into Fukushima. It's such an insanity thing. Like, no, people do not die immediately from. I mean, what happens is it takes a long time, but your next generation of people are not born because the sterility rates skyrocket. But
you're right. It's a slow kill. And from World War II, we knew from our reports and from declassified reports from the Japanese government that they had done secret tests flying over balloons over the Pacific using wind currents And they hit us that way. We also had radiation plumes from World War II after Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So we had that recorded. We know about the jet streams, and we knew that this was coming. So this is part of why the EPA has been turning off their rad filters. Whenever there's a plume coming, they turn off the rad filter.
Right, exactly.
All right. So, I mean, you have all of these people are looking, and they're saying, okay, we're looking at the rad monitors, EPA, this and that, blah, blah, blah. So every couple
Well,
of
that's
weeks.
why Monsanto Clinton told the Prime Minister of Japan that we would not test for radiation. And we still don't test for radiation. I'm engaged. I have a GoFundMe page for radcast.org. We're trying to get a gamma spectrometer so that we can actually test our food here in the Northwest.
Wow, that's great work. And
it's great work, but we need $5,000. It's $5,800. So we have a GoFundMe page because I figure we've got $100 in. Me and somebody else contributed. I figure if everybody contributes $50, that's not a huge amount of money, but it's going to be kind of like a people's lab where people can just send Radcast food samples. So like Thomas Ackerman up in Canada has a fish that his buddy got over the summer fishing for salmon, and now Ackerman's a vegan, but he brought home a fish for him. And when we get this gamma spectrometer, we're going to test it for radiation. Because it's not being tested. We're not testing our food.
I agree with you 100%. I think that's a beautiful, wonderful idea.
You should start one wherever it is that you're living. You know what I mean? Like, do a GoFundMe page so your little community can have your own. I mean, we live with millions of people in our area, and all we need is like 100, 200 people to actively get engaged and contribute a tiny bit of money. $50 is a substantial amount of a contribution to just give to some random people that you don't know, and you hope that they're going to do what they say with it, right? So that's the issue, right? But the thing is, what if you can really trust the people that are doing it, and everybody has a good heart in there, and they set it up, because like this money is going to go right into a savings account that's just going to get saved. It comes out of the GoFundMe page into my account, and it's going to go directly into a savings account to get saved up. And let's just hope the banks don't crash in the meantime. That's my
You're right. No, that's a great idea, though. And in terms of civilian monitoring, I think we really do have to be, the front lines in the defense force, because we are receiving plumes. It's not consistent, and it's not as big as the first couple of weeks in the first year, but we still receive plumes. Even the EPA on their own site, if you go to the RadNet monitoring, and you can look at specific cities, even though about 2/3 of their monitoring places are down, the ones that are still up are off the charts. And you can look at the statistics. Like I'm here in Washington D.C., and first week of September we had a count on 1 week where we had something like 375 parts per minute, and our average is 15 to 20. Background radiation and things like that. So we had higher radiation in California for a whole week. And that was just a southwestern plume that came in through Gulf of Mexico. EPA knows this, and they're purposely turning off their monitors in certain regions.
Okay, so Patrick, now I'm just chomping at the bits to ask you something here. Mostly because of where you say you're living right now, which is Washington, D.C., right?
Yes.
Do you make a concerted effort to like make an appointment with your own congressman and your own senator and make appointments with them and sit down and say, hey, what's going on with, Fukushima? Why aren't we doing, why can't we appropriate money? I mean, are you making personal efforts to reach out? You're right there.
I do personally do that, realizing that the special nature of where I am a little sensitive about it, depending on the issue and the agency, of course. I'm not so, I'm a little hesitant in terms of just walking into DHS or FBI. But yes, I have done that.
Me too. I'm with you on that.
But I have, and sometimes it works just on being polite and civil and doing, freedom of information act requests and things like that. And then sometimes it's just a shock value because, they're normal people and they rarely get that. They rarely get people, period, nationally or even from the local area here in D.C. who care and are interested and walk in the office and say, I wish to know about this program, or, I have the names of these operations in the field and I'm requesting field data for that. And then when you do that, most times they're like, oh, sure. if you
Right.
actually know what you're talking about. But if you're just shooting in the wind and all right, and you let them give you the bureaucratic runaround, then yeah.
Well, the deal
There are times that that's happened.
Look.
I walked into DHS office years ago, and I asked them about the 2008 food bill, which actually it was written by Bush, and it had H1N1 in the food bill, which you can read online. This is a year and a half before H1N1 even came out.
Yes.
So I walked in there and I said, how were you aware of H1N1 before it even came on the scene a year and a half before Mexico, where it was passed in Congress, in a bill? Right. My friends thought I was crazy, of course. They're like, you're going to disappear. NDA. They're going to NDA you. But yeah, sometimes
bravo,
there are
good for
issues
you,
like
Patrick.
that.
Bravo, because that's what we need. That's precisely what we need. I mean, to be actively engaged and pay attention, because I can share the same kind of story. It was the same thing. Actually, maybe it was the same year, because it was the food bill. In those days, I used to read all the legislation. I mean, I would just spend nights just reading all the legislation. And I could not believe it. In the middle of the food bill, there was a little paragraph that you might have remembered it. This was taken out. There was a small paragraph to make backyard organic farms illegal.
Yes, I remember that.
And I called up the committee, and I called up my senators, and I was like, I actually called Loretta Sanchez's office, I think it was, in California, or one of those California's representatives. And I said, are you, because I'm from California, so she used to be my representative. And I was like, are you aware, this is on page 6, it was like 657 or in the middle of the 1,200-page document.
Yes, it was 1,200 pages, and they put a lot of that toxic order crap in the back, thinking that nobody would find it, nobody would care for the details.
I was dumbfounded, and they were like, no, we weren't. And I read it. I'm like, can you tell me what because what I interpret this to mean is my organic farm in my backyard is going to be illegal. And they're like, let's get back to you. Can you, I'll get back to you on that. We don't have a position. That was their answer. So, interesting enough, I called back 2 weeks later, right before the vote, to see what had happened. And she said, we got that taken out of committee because you and about 10 other people called. It only took 10 people to have that removed.
Wow.
Out of millions of people, it only takes 10. Yeah, you and about 10 other people called, and we really looked into it a little bit more. And it was just, put in there, slipped in by some lobbyists for the military-industrial complex. To be honest, it has nothing. Big Pharma and the military-industrial complex are the same folks. So it was shocking. But that's how few it takes, Patrick. So bravo to you for contacting them and going in and taking charge. But honestly, right now, I really would implore you as a citizen to please do that again in regards to St. Louis and demand that we get some testing done. Because I think if you walked into a congressman's office or a senator's office this week and said, hey, the stories it's right on the internet, it might catch on fire in December, and we're not even testing. Like, why are we waiting? The EPA just screwed up Colorado. Why are we going to wait for the worst case scenario to happen when we don't even know what it is and they're refusing to test?
I'm totally with you there, and I was I'm new to the radio station, and I've been here for a couple of days, and the people here are great and really
really welcome. I'm actually new to the radio station myself. I've been following it for less than a year, to be honest, and I'm very excited. There's a lot of really, it's like I said at the beginning of the show, I really like it because there's people on here that I don't exactly agree with, but it's very interesting to hear their voice. And I find it very fascinating to understand their mentality, because I believe that we can all live in peace and harmony through the act of love. Love is an action verb. You know what I mean? So.
No, I'm with you there, and I think I was sort of rambling on this last night about how it's to me more of a spiritual battle in terms of frequencies.
Yes, it is actually.
And part of how we can defeat these things is not so much picking up guns and getting into the streets that way, but it's a mental aspect.
Right.
Right. Like with like if you think of this summer with the Jade Helm exercise, and everybody was saying, okay, we're ready for martial law and we're waiting for the tanks and so forth and so on. And it had nothing to do with that. It was a joint task force J2 level intelligence psyop coming out of U.S. Army SOCOM, out of Fort Bragg. So if you think of psychological warfare, that was the psyop. To gaslight the entire nation.
Exactly.
Physically do nothing and just sit back and data mine who says what. Who's talking about their connections. And so we're in a, psychotronic, psychological, information-based, net-centric global warfare. Right? So if you're not willing to pick up guns, and if you don't want to go that route, then what other route do you have? If it's a global information-based war against the whole species and you, how do you defeat that if you're one person? All right. So anger is not going to do it because that plays right into their hands, gives them an excuse to roll out the whole program. All right. That's all they want is one group to set it off. And some of these groups are funded by the government.
Right.
I mean, some of them have been infiltrated, like Black Lives Matter. Started off with great points, got infiltrated. And now you have
every movement. Right. They infiltrate everything.
Right.
Even here in Eugene, they infiltrated a movement here in Eugene, Oregon. Oregon was not an integrated state after the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. And it took until the late 80s for them to organize and say, hey, we want to have the rights of the other states. But they actually infiltrated here. They infiltrate everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I was with Occupy, and they infiltrated, and Obama came in and decided he was going to use DHS. You know what I mean? So he used DHS, and he first labeled Occupy as domestic terrorist, and he met with the Board of Governors in all 50 states, gave them the capstone instructions, and said, this is how we're going to break it down over several months, infiltration, using the fusion centers, data collection, the whole 9 yards. Same thing with Black Lives Matter, from what I hear. The original people who are running that and their agenda, it's right. If you can connect the dots, because the people that are running the street operations now in the last 6 to 9 months with Black Lives Matter, they all have federal connections. All right. So this these race-based, gaslighting events, and it's across all the fields. It's for their data mining. You know what I mean? There's no physical assault that's coming at us. They're just gaslighting us to see who knows who.
Yeah.
Right. To record our connections.
Counting heads and taking names. That's exactly right. That's what they're doing. Counting heads and taking names and seeing who's where, because the shit is going to hit the fan, and people will line up according to what their thoughts are. But this is why, I think it's very imperative that we start talking about love ahead of the game. We need to have humanity. Remember, it's humanity, because we really could extinct ourselves. In fact, we're on that path already. I actually really intuitively believe that sound healing and changing of the molecules is going to help resolve the issue of the radioactivity that's overtaken our planet. I don't believe it's all a shithole and we're all going to die and it's an extinction level. We're going to have massive death, yes, but I think we will resolve it in a way that life on this planet can resume. That's what
I agree with you, and I have hope for the species, and I have hope for the planet. I think it's part of our, I guess you could say, growing pains.
Yeah, well, I think that we're going to get some cleansing going on, and then after this, once we have this massive purge, I think we're going to live on a planet. Frankly, I think we're going to have so few humans on the planet, the thought of war and death is going to be unconscionable for hundreds of thousands of years. I think it's just going to be a challenge for us to exist. And this is why I love art, because art gives beauty to life, the most crude life. If you have art in your life, you get inspired to find beauty and joy every day in living. And so
that's a beautiful thought. And I'm with you there, operating both sides, hemispheres of the brain.
Well, and I think I think it's imperative for us as humans to really appreciate that, because we have a gift. Our species has a gift that has gone. We have been socially engineered to ignore all of our gifts. How many of us know people who have very low self-esteem, who really do nothing but create problems for themselves all their lives, and then either they grow out of it or they get worse in their older age. And you know, I'm speaking from experience. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I had
yeah,
a gift. I mean, I have these odd gifts that all of a sudden, like when I was young, I could do a bunch of stuff. Did I ever take advantage of it? No, because I was socially engineered and lived in a class where all I did was like, until I really began to really believe in the power of the universe. I mean, as soon as I really accepted that the universe rewards love greater than fear and anxiety, once you embrace that thought, the rest of it, we are greatly challenged right now on our planet. Massively more than any other time in human history, in known history, our species is under assault. In fact, every species is under assault. It's ecocide, not just genocide thereafter. And I don't
I,
know if it's them after it, but it is a kind of a rolling ball that's going down the hill, and I think they're just incompetent and don't know how to stop it.
I think it's all connected, and I think, I don't think there's just one reason. I think there's many different reasons as to why people are waking up, and I think you can see that, especially over the last 15, 17, 18 years. If you go back to maybe 96, 98. In terms of astronomy and astrology, there were people who were feeding into that on both ends, both light and dark, and there were people who were feeding into things both light and dark in terms of organized, established religion. And you had prophecies within indigenous cultures, you had prophecies even within Christianity and this and that. You had prophecies and different markers coming out of the occult. I think it's interesting that people don't balance that for every time that there's a great awakening that's happening. Right? We have these forces that come at us. So I look at it that way in a positive aspect. If there's so much darkness coming at us, what are they afraid of?
Right.
What are they actually afraid of? And if you put all of it together, and I don't think there's ever been a point in time in history globally where we've ever been so connected, knowing about each other, understanding about each other's cultures. This goes across the board: medicine, education, all of it. I think that's what they fear. If you look at Iceland and breaking down the NWO bankers, and it's not all in just one place, but we have spots across the planet where we are actually hitting them, like where it hurts, and we're not just taking them out temporarily. We are permanently erasing them from the GIG, from the global information grid and the system that they set up, and that's what I think scares them, that we're taking out ancient bloodlines that have been around for hundreds, thousands of years. And they're freaked out because they're like, look at these little peons on the plantation waking up over here in America, waking up over here. How do we?
The natives are restless.
Yeah, and they're trying to play whack-a-mole, and for the last 15, 18 years, they're playing whack-a-mole here and whack-a-mole there, all across the planet.
That's an interesting perspective.
Right. They're whack-a-moling us spiritually, but it's not working. It's cascading so quickly that they're losing control of the greatest and longest living illusion. Right.
Well, I'm actually glad that you called. Patrick, would you do me a favor in a couple weeks? Would you call back and tell us what happened in regards to connecting with these people about the EPA and demanding testing? Because I think that if you got together with 3 or 4 or 5 people walking into an office saying, look, we need EPA testing, and call up a radio or a television station and say, hey, would you follow us in because we're going to be asking this guy some hard-hitting questions. And I think the issue of it not being tested in St. Louis is freaking me out, to be honest. I had no idea they had not tested.
I have family there, and then I just heard about it, did some amateur research, and I was
That's
familiar with
outrageous. And I think that, frankly, since you know about it, the universe has placed it on your shoulders.
Yes.
I think I'm going to actually take some action on this one. I'm going to call my own congressman, my own senator. I'm going to call Claire McCaskill's office and say, hey, the EPA is saying they cannot do testing, and we're 3 months away because there's other companies involved. But this could be... St. Louis, we have no idea what's under there. That means they have no idea what's underneath that mess.
Exactly. They have no idea, and we already have the tools and technology to deal with it. We can map it literally within an hour. If we have over 200 plus, that's just in the known satellites, U.S. Army, the whole 9 yards, right? And that's not even our covert stuff, right?
Well, I can tell you
Hey,
what I'm going to be doing from 9 o'clock until 10 o'clock is I'm going to be phone calling. I'm going to be calling the EPA as soon as I get off of this radio station. This is going to be urgent in my book because I'm outraged. I'm grateful.
I
Thank
can
you so
contact
much,
you.
Patrick, for calling in. And welcome to UCY.TV Radio. Really,
Well, thank you very much, and it was a pleasure to speak with you. And I will get back in touch with you in a week and a half. Is when I get back from St. Louis. I'm just going out there myself to touch base with my family, and then while I'm out there, I'm gonna explore some of these
are you
issues.
taking iodine with you?
I've had that actually stocked up since Fukushima, but yes.
Well, good. Take it because you probably, the revolution will not be televised. There is probably pollution that is leaking there that they're not telling people and underreporting. So you need to, or at least take curcumin. I mean, take some
Yeah.
supplements or something to. If you're going to go there, make sure you protect yourself.
Yes, I'm going to try to protect myself, and then also touch base for contact information with the Westlake community, gather information, and then to do some underground testing myself. I know some people and have some skills in doing that. And
Bravo!
since nobody's done it, then why not? Do some sampling, throw some data up there.
Wow.
Put it in the faces of the county, federal agencies, and see what they say. My plan is to put it on paper, and so put them on notice in the courts. So
Bravo!
because I'm here in D.C., that's my step. I'm trying to work this through where I can gather the information and then actually take them to federal court here. I'm not going to actually step into the courts, but just on paper. Do you know what I mean? They're in federal violation of numerous codes.
Yes.
Right, so they have to respond to we the people and answer as to why and what they're doing and how they're spending our money and, lack of federal protection based on known evidence that they have. There's tons of things that we can hit them on.
Wow, Patrick, you have given me hope for today. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you. I swear you have reinstilled, I don't know the word. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I can't believe it. You've invigorated my hope for humanity this morning because you are exactly the kind of American, a real American that we really need to have, a real true human being, somebody who sees beyond what we're being fed. So
Oh, wow.
really, thank you. I hope you call me back. Please do call back. I mean, if you find out a lot of information, we'll give you a whole hour to discuss this and do a complete interview with you.
Oh, okay. I'm a little shy, but okay.
Okay, well then we'll just have you call in and you can talk to us because you're really quite good on the radio and your information is so valuable. I really thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you for having me, and you take care. You have a good day now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Good luck. Wow, that was a super delight, don't you guys think? Bravo, Patrick. Bravo. Like, really? I am really invigorated by that phone call. That really did me a world of good to know that there's actually somebody sitting in Washington, D.C., paying attention to one of the biggest catastrophes, in fact, probably the biggest catastrophe that the United States has ongoing right now, that is being ignored because it's related to radiation. And that he's actually really going to take some action. He's thought it through, and really, that's exactly what we need. And thank you, Patrick. I am actually going to get on the phone with the EPA and my elected officials as soon as this radio show ends in about 45 seconds. So I really appreciate that. Wow, great call-in Friday. This was worth the dead air with me just talking, waiting for someone really valuable to call. Thank you, everybody, for listening to UCY.TV radio. This is why this radio station is valuable. Minds like that are attracted to it, and we do have the power to save our planet. We do have the minds, we have the love, we have the commitment. We just need to put our courage feet on and take action. So thank you for joining me today on the Age of Fission radio show. We'll see you on Monday. Put your courage feet on, you guys. Really appreciate you.